It was a bitterly cold night in New York City, nearing midnight. Snow blanketed the sidewalks, and the streets were nearly empty. Ethan Blake, a powerful tech CEO, sat in the warmth of his chauffeured car, focused on emails, oblivious to the world outside, until a red light forced the car to stop. That's when he noticed her. A young woman sat alone at a bus stop, her scrubs barely shielding her from the biting wind. Her hands trembled, and her lips were visibly blue from the cold. She looked exhausted, vulnerable, and completely out of place in the freezing night. Ethan's instincts overrode his usual guarded nature. He rolled down the window, his voice cutting through the hush of snow. "Hey! You'll freeze out here, get in." She looked startled, unsure whether to trust him. Most would hesitate too, he was a stranger in a luxury car offering warmth, but she was desperate. Without waiting for her answer, Ethan opened the door and stepped into the snow. His tone softened but stayed firm. "You're coming with me." Something about his presence, maybe the way he looked at her like she mattered, broke through her hesitation. In that moment, the line between the powerful and the powerless disappeared. He wasn't a CEO, and she wasn't just a nurse stuck in the cold. She was someone in need, and he was someone who could help. And without knowing it, that small act of compassion was about to change both of their lives forever. Inside the warm luxury car, the world outside looked like a frozen dream, white streets, blurry lights, and breath fogging the windows. Lily clutched the soft blanket Ethan had given her, her fingers slowly regaining warmth. Her voice was soft, tired. "I'm Lily. A nurse. Just finished a 14-hour shift at County General, missed the last bus." Ethan, still in his tailored suit, glanced at her with quiet curiosity. "Why not grab a cab?" She gave a small smile, almost apologetic. "I send everything I earn back home. My little brother's in and out of the hospital. Dialysis, meds, the bills never stop." The words hung in the air. Ethan felt a strange silence stretch between them, not the kind that came from awkwardness, but from understanding. Here was a woman who gave everything she had to others. A woman who saved lives by day, and quietly sacrificed her own comfort by night. He looked at her, not at her worn scrubs or tired eyes, but at the strength she carried, the selflessness that radiated even in exhaustion. In that moment, Ethan, a man used to dealing with stock prices and power plays, realized something humbling. Lily, with nothing but compassion and courage, had more integrity than many people who sat at his conference table. He didn't say much. He just nodded slowly. But something in him shifted. It was the first time in a long while that someone else's story made him question his own. Ethan's apartment was a world away from the cold streets. Glass walls, soft lighting, and silence that felt more like a museum than a home. As they entered, Lily looked around, unsure of where to stand. When he offered her the guest room, she shook her head gently. "I'll just sit on the couch. I'm okay, really." There was no pride in her voice, just habit. A quiet acceptance of always settling for less. Ethan didn't push. He brought her a hot meal and a thick blanket, then left her to rest. Hours passed. At 3 a.m., unable to sleep, he wandered into the living room, and paused. Lily had fallen asleep on the couch, the blanket barely covering her shoulders. Her phone had slipped from her hand. Curious, he picked it up and the screen lit up, a slideshow of photos, her brother in a hospital bed, her scribbled patient care notes, and a half-written nursing scholarship application. She hadn't just been working, she was fighting for a future. Ethan stood there for a long moment, his heart heavy. He had wealth, comfort, power. But this young woman, who had almost nothing, had purpose. Selflessness. Strength. He felt small, not because he lacked success, but because he had never needed to give the way she did, every single day. In that quiet moment, surrounded by glass and city lights, Ethan saw something clearer than ever before. true worth isn't built in boardrooms, it's built in the choices we make for others. The morning sunlight poured through Ethan's penthouse windows, casting a warm glow across the sleek marble counters and polished floors. The smell of fresh coffee filled the kitchen, but the mood was quiet, thoughtful. Lily sat at the counter, still in borrowed clothes, her eyes swollen from sleep but more relaxed than the night before. She stirred her tea absent-mindedly, unaware that her entire life was about to change. Ethan sat across from her, a man who had made billion-dollar deals with ease, yet this moment felt harder. More personal. He took a breath and finally spoke. "I want to cover your brother's medical expenses." "All of them?" Lily's spoon stopped mid-stir. She blinked. "What?" "And," he continued, "if you're open to it, I want to offer you a position. Full-time. Head of medical outreach for my new foundation. You'll build the programs. Lead the work. Change lives on your terms." She stared at him, overwhelmed. "But, why me?" Ethan smiled gently. "Because you've been saving lives when no one was watching. You show up. You sacrifice. You care. And now, it's time someone saw you." Tears welled in her eyes, but for once, they weren't from exhaustion or stress. They were from hope. In that kitchen, with nothing flashy and no cameras, Ethan Blake gave her something far more powerful than charity. He gave her purpose, recognition, and the belief that kindness truly could come full circle. The bright afternoon sun bathed the newly built community health clinic in golden light. Balloons danced in the breeze, children played along the sidewalk, and families lined up for free checkups and vaccinations. The grand opening was more than an event, it was a celebration of hope. Lily stood at the entrance, confident and radiant, no longer the exhausted nurse shivering at a bus stop. She wore a crisp blazer with her name pinned beneath the title, Director of Medical Outreach. Her brother, now recovered and beaming with pride, stood beside her, wrapping her in a grateful hug. Cameras flashed as reporters gathered around Ethan, who stood humbly off to the side, watching it all unfold with quiet pride. "What inspired you to start this foundation?" one of them asked. Ethan glanced at Lily, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Because sometimes," he said, "the people we save, end up saving us." The crowd went silent for a moment. Then the applause began, gentle at first, then rising like a wave. The camera zoomed out, capturing the laughter of children, the smiling faces of parents, and the unmistakable feeling that something beautiful had begun. What started with one cold night and a single act of compassion had grown into a legacy, a reminder that kindness isn't just about charity. It's about seeing people, lifting them, and letting them shine. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change the world.